I will call to order the regular meeting of the Police Commission today, Monday, July 11th at 5:08 p.m. And we will start with the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I keep looking at this, that there, so that I don't read the wrong thing. The next item on our agenda is correspondence. Commissioner Swett,
I'll begin.
please read our correspondence.
Summary of letters received from Cadet family regarding Officer Cushman. Subject: the parents of one of our cadets wanted to express their appreciation for Officer Cushman. They felt he was a positive presence since she was in middle school and later keeping her engaged in law enforcement throughout high school. The actions of Officer Cushman have led their daughter to the insight that she too may want to pursue a career in law enforcement. Quote, "I cannot think of higher praise," end quote. Next, received from resident regarding Officers Colby and Cruz. Subject: this resident would like to thank both Officer Colby and Officer Cruz for their help when responding to her call. She appreciated their patience and kind nature when assessing the situation and their genuine concern for her well-being. End of letters.
Thank you, sir. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for June 13th, 2022 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
All second.
Any discussion?
None from me.
All right. In that case, all in favor of approving the minutes from the June 13th, 2022 meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is old business. Does anyone have any old business?
I don't know if this is old business or not, but I appreciated the emails about the police officer's fire response. It's for those three men to go in and take charge and move out, as we like to say. Wow, that was fun to read. So please pass along, I would think, all of our appreciation, congratulations.
And there was even a dispatch notice in there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so good total team effort. Yeah, very nice.
That ties into the next item of our agenda, the chairperson's report. I received a letter or an email from a resident. He wrote to Sean Askham and myself about the officers, an email, and in it I'll read it quickly. Jenna Caulfield, Police Commission Chair. As a lifelong Simsbury resident and 25-plus year member of the Simsbury Volunteer Fire Company, I would like to make you aware of the actions of Sergeant Tebow, Officer Galducci, Officer Marinac, and Officer Arnold. On July 6, 2022, a resident reported to ERS that there was warm air and smoke inside their home. Shortly thereafter, the resident reported that she, her husband, and two dogs were unable to leave their bedroom due to smoke and heat. An emergency response was quickly initiated, triggering a large response from Simsbury's emergency services. The police officers who arrived on scene first quickly reported that there was a fire on the first floor of the residence. The officers quickly located a ladder near the home and extended it to the second floor, successfully removing one of the residents. The ladder was repositioned and the SPD officers assisted in stabilizing the ladder, which was in a very precarious position due to terrain. So the second resident could then be removed by SBFC. The fire was extinguished and the two dogs successfully were removed from the structure alive. What could be initially characterized as a chaotic scene was mitigated with poise and precise actions from the SPD officers. If not for the ingenuity, quick actions, and heroic efforts of these officers, the outcome would have been very different. I bring a unique perspective to this incident, being a retired police officer myself. I have seen the best and the worst of policing. I can tell you that these officers are an asset to the department and a credit to the badge. In a time where police officers are often criticized for their actions, I'm here to tell you that we are very lucky to have officers such as these willing to selflessly act and watch over the residents of Simsbury. Please express my deepest appreciation for their actions and continued teamwork. Todd M. Myers. I just wanted to share that. In addition, another item on June 20th, we had a press conference with Senator Blumenthal. It was a pressless
Yes.
press conference. There was no press there, but it was very nice. He awarded Simsbury a grant for $70,000. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And I think we all were there except for you, Travis. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I also received an email from Joan Cove concerning whether we attach our attachments to the agenda when we post them online. I've been out of town, so I haven't had any chance to look at that. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up that we received that, and I will look into that forthcoming. The next item.
And the question is whether or not, have we been posting them, or?
We haven't
should
been
be,
posting.
yeah.
There, as far as I know, there's no legal requirement, so I just need to find out what it entails and so forth.
Okay.
We don't have any requirement to post our agenda or anything online as long as it's posted downstairs on that board. So I don't know all the minutiae
Okay.
about attachments and so forth. I'll look into it. I just have not had a chance because I was not here. The next item I wanted to mention was the cadets. I ran into SRO Rattel, and he was excited that all of the cadets will be able to attend the Cadet Academy. So they do have the necessary budget with the help of some town sponsors. And they will be looking again for future sponsorships. But it's exciting news that they all will be able to attend. And the last item on my chairperson's report, I am sad to report that Commissioner Fogarty will be ending his tenure with us when his term expires in December. I appreciate all of your hard work. You've been excellent to work with, and I'm sad you're going, but I understand.
Thank you.
And that concludes my chairperson's report. I will now turn it over to Deputy Chief Davis for the chief's report.
I'll start with personnel. You still have 2 officers out on medical leave. They're expected to return within a month or 2. An additional officer is out on leave due to a fall and an injury that occurred in a foot pursuit of the suspect last month. We're still working on filling vacant ACO position, which is in the background stages. And additionally, our accreditation specialist position job posting closed with 47 applicants. We're reviewing the qualifications and experience of those applicants, trying to narrow the list to about 8 to 10 individuals to move forward to an oral interview.
That's terrific, 47 applicants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Vernon just posted theirs and they had 10. And the pay actually is higher than ours, but I'm surprised that we had that many applicants. So it's great to see.
So overall strength of the force right now?
So right now we're at full strength for our officers. So we're at 39, and then we have the additional 2 positions that were approved in the budget.
Yep.
We're in the process right now. We had 47, like the same people apply for entry-level position, and we've had 5 certified officers that have applied from various states, mostly
For those
states.
2 positions?
For those 2 positions.
Yeah, great.
Yep. So we'll see what, we have interviews starting, I believe, on Friday for those positions.
And any pending retirements, or are we, right now, we're clean?
None that we know of.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
okay.
While we're speaking of accreditation, we just finished our year 1 assessment, which occurred the last week of June. We received very favorable feedback from the assessor, who described our assessment as outstanding, which I credit largely due to the efforts of private PFC Tracy Dunn, as well as Christina Deltado, who is our temporary accreditation specialist. While we won't receive our official notification from CLIA until probably August or September, we aren't expecting any issues, and it went very smooth and seamlessly. So thank you to them for their outstanding work. Motor vehicle thefts update. So far, we had a total of 4 car thefts this calendar year, which last year we had 7. So a little bit down from last year, which is good. Catalytic converter thefts, we had 34 reported catalytic converter thefts from vehicles since we began tracking them at the end of August 2021. The last one we had was June 30th this year. Bear activity. Bears have been very active this year. We had 65 reported bear complaints for the month of June. However, out of those complaints, 40 of them were merely bear sightings. About 13 were complaints of bears rummaging through trash cans. There was one report of a bear being involved in a motor vehicle accident, but the bear was apparently uninjured. In addition, there were 10 reports of bears entering dwellings, including garages. Some recent and upcoming events.
And I'm sorry, of the bear situation, how many do we have tagged in Simsbury? I've heard the number is like mid-30s.
That could be, you know what, I will have to get back to you on that. I would go to Mark Rudowitz on it to find out.
Okay.
You'd be the, but, you know, the expert on
Yeah.
that, but
All right.
I'll find out.
Does the bear have a driver's license?
As far as upcoming events, the Simsbury Cadets, like Jen was saying, will be participating in the Northeast Regional Law Enforcement Academy at Westfield State University later this month. So that's excellent. And then the Junior Police Academy for ages 10 through 13 will also be this summer from August 1st through August 5th, primarily the police department. And then just for some notable activity, Chief and I would like to take a minute to publicly recognize the outstanding work being performed by our staff over the past month. While we always provide outstanding service, the past few weeks have been unusually busy for our officers with several notable incidents, including a fatal motor vehicle accident on West Mountain Road, a large drug seizure and arrest, as well as the early morning fire on Bushy Hill Road that was described earlier. It should be noted that the officers' fast response, quick thinking, and heroic efforts in assisting the residents out of the second-story window and coordinating the arriving fire department personnel helped to achieve a favorable outcome for all involved. Everyone involved in these incidents, from the officers to the dispatchers, as well as handling the more routine calls for service, are deserving a little bit extra praise this month for a job well done. You've all done an outstanding job.
Can you give us a little bit of color on the drug seizure?
So it was in an area that we've been called to frequently for loud parties and some neighborhood disruptions down on Grimes Road. And the officer got down there. He come in as a suspicious vehicle. The officer, through investigation and speaking to the operator, was able to get him out and perform based on observations and evidence that was available to him to locate over a pound of marijuana, 6 ounces of psilocybin mushrooms in chocolate bar form, as well as a bunch of other drug paraphernalia, so
Okay.
different things. So it was a good arrest.
Yeah.
That was
But predominantly marijuana is what I wanted to get at, what we were looking at as far as
a
the
little bit of mushrooms, but mostly
scope here,
mostly,
make sure we don't have a real
mostly marijuana.
significant issue.
Yep. But that's a large cedar for
Sure.
over a pound. And that's it for that. Any questions on the consolidated monthly or preliminary reports?
I didn't have anything highlighted.
Yeah, I got you.
No.
It's hard to go from this year to last year, when last year was still at the height of COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it kind of skews all the numbers.
Yeah, I had nothing. Did you see anything that jumps out to you that we should know? Other than a pound of marijuana?
No, nothing.
All right.
I did want to ask about the incident at the airport. We had a crash landing there. My understanding is after a thorough search by both the volunteer fire department and our police department, we came up with no one. And then we ended up calling the individual and found out that guy was in New York and had turned right around and left the scene. And so I'm wondering if there was any follow-up or what transpired there.
So the FAA actually is investigating that. We're basically kind of assisting with them with that. So we're kind of following their lead on it. They're still investigating it. At this point, nothing has really been closed on it.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Okay.
Publicly on
Fair enough.
it. So,
And the damage to the damage to Gifts of Love, you know, is that reimbursed by the town, or or is that an insurance thing?
It's an insurance thing,
Yeah.
yeah. We've been in contact with the insurance company. They have, requested certain,
Yeah.
information so they can kind of proceed.
Rebuild their greenhouse. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Moving on to the next item of the agenda, new business. Anyone have any new business they would like to discuss?
No, I did not.
All right. Then moving on to the next item of our agenda, presentation, accreditation overview.
Right. Everybody's been on their edge of their seats waiting for this, but.
You better believe it.
That's right. So for this topic, I thought it would be probably more prudent to do a PowerPoint just because instead of kind of just dry reading. We always talk about accreditation, over the last couple of months, the last couple of years, we've talked about, accreditation specialists, our assessments. So we thought it would be a good opportunity to just kind of delve into it, just kind of educate everybody on what is accreditation. If anybody who doesn't know, it's a formalized process in which a certification or competency is presented. It establishes standards based on best practices that ensures quality of services that are provided. It's not just obviously in law enforcement, but accreditation exists in many fields, such as schools, hospitals, and the list goes on and on. I just kind of highlighted those two as an example. Right? So accreditation of hospitals, doctors' offices, and surgical centers ensures the quality and safety of patients, making sure that everything's cleaning standards are up to speed, the training for all the personnel and testing equipment used on patients are safe. Right? Would you want a surgeon who hasn't kept up on the training or operating on you in an unclean environment with obsolete equipment? Obviously the answer would be no. Just as well as accreditation for education and universities, colleges. It makes sure that students have received up-to-date education and training in their degree programs so that they get the best education possible. So for us, CALEA is the Commission on Accreditation of Law Enforcement Agencies, which started in 1979. It was started based on the recommendation of an independent authority by 4 organizations: the IACP, International Associations of Chiefs of Police, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Officers, the National Sheriff's Association, and the Police Executive Research Forum. It's only awarded after a lengthy and involved process, right, which typically takes many years. For a department that is not accredited, it can take years to get that accreditation. I was fortunate when I started in Manchester in 1994, they had already been accredited. So when I first started, we were already accredited for my whole career there. When I went over to East Hartford, they were not accredited, but they had been working on it for about 3 years probably. So then I was able to work there for 2 years, get them work on that, and got accredited right before I left.
And how many years have we held our accreditation?
Since it's a different slide, but since 2011.
Yeah, great.
So, what are the goals of CALEA? Formalize essential management procedures, establish fair and non-discriminatory personnel practices, improve the service delivery, solidify interagency cooperation and coordination, increases community and staff confidence in the agency. Right? You want to make sure that you're doing the best practices that are out there, and we certainly are. So here, CALEA standards, right? So they set different standards that have to be met in order to achieve the certification. Standards consist of policies and procedures based on the best practices designed to ensure that we have the consistent and current with law enforcement trends. So there's 2 tiers of accreditation, right? So Tier 1 agencies need to be in compliance with 181 standards. Tier 2 agencies need to be in compliance with 459 standards. We are a two-tier agency, and we have been since 2011. Now, even out of those 459 standards, many of those have multiple, I'll say, bullet points underneath them. So it's not just 459 things that we have to have. It's much more than 459 items that we have to kind of put in place to make sure that we achieve that standard. So this would be an example of a standard that does not have any bullets, right? So this is just record, the status of property. So we have records that reflect the status of all the property held by the agency. So we have, we have that, right, in order to establish the chain of custody for all of our items. So this would be an example of a standard with bulleted items. So it's pretty small writing, but again, it talks about evidence, talking about inspections, audits, record keeping, things like that. So those 4 arrows that you see there, we have to accomplish each and every one of those arrows in order to achieve the standard. Okay. And then the commentary below that is meant to provide guidance and direction. So when you have the bullet, sometimes it might be a little bit confusing about what it is that they're actually looking for. So they refer to the commentary and they kind of really spell it out as far as what was the basis for this standard, describe it there as far as what the meat and potatoes is, as far as what they're really looking for. So you want to make sure that carries on. So this is just this would be a proof of compliance with that standard, right? So this, again, talking about the evidence or the property audit. So this shows that the audit was performed at the required time frame, shows the applicable standard that it's in reference to. And then a description of what was actually inspected so that it matches with the standard that we have, the bulleted standard, right, that shows that we were in compliance. So we would take that memo and we would attach it to that clear standard, so that when they come, the assessors, that's what they look for, right? So they'll pull out the standard which says you have to have an audit, an annual audit every year. Then they'll go into our proofs to say, okay, one, do we have an order that says we have to do it? Yes, we do. We have that order is in there. And then we have to prove that we're actually doing it. And we can't just have an order that says we do it. We have to actually show that we're doing it. So this would be the proof showing that we are physically complying with each of those standards.
Do they ever spot check it and go and look for the physical logbook?
So everything that we load in, that's what they would look at. I mean, when they're here, they can do anything.
Okay.
It's up to the assessors as far as, I've had assessors, it's a little bit different now, so that, and actually I'll kind of bring you to the next, we'll get there, but I'll kind of walk you through it. So how does it benefit us? It prepares us for critical incidents, increased training, as far as, the annual and biannual requirements for training, enhances community relationships, fostering public trust, it makes sure that management decisions are based on accurate and most up-to-date information, biannual analyses and increased tracking of relevant information. It certainly assists in lawsuits by demonstrating that we're a professional agency that uses the best practices in law enforcement. When attorneys, go to sue an agency, that's one of the first things they'll do is obviously pull the policy and look at it, and then just fact that we're CLIA accredited, they'll know that we follow the best practices. So, I've seen, lawsuits get reduced by 0, based on the fact of good policies and good sound practices. So it certainly benefits us in that regard. Equipment upgrades, and it also increases our access to grants and training opportunities. It's created by numbers. So nationally, there's 704 local agencies in the U.S. that are accredited, as well as some highway patrols and some state police, etc. The largest accredited agency is Chicago with 14,000, and the smallest is Richmond, Michigan with 7. There are currently 22 agencies in Connecticut, although several others are currently working towards it, based on mostly because of different state statutes that have changed and requiring accreditation by 2025. So this kind of goes back to your question, Jenna. So we're assessed every year. So we're on a 4-year cycle. So each year they'll look at 25% of our policies and proofs, and they do that remotely. So we give them a login. They can go in. They can pull up all of our information that we've entered in there. The 4th year, they actually come out and do an on-site assessment. So they'll come here, boots on the ground, conduct interviews, they'll do ride-alongs, talk to townspeople, as well as they can inspect any you know, they're going to files, they can do whatever they want while they're here, basically just to make sure that everything is up to snuff.
And where are we at in the cycle right now?
So we just finished year 1. So last year we got reaccredited. They came out in last June and did the onsite.
That's what I was thinking about. I
Yes.
remember we had interviews.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was
Okay.
last June. So now we're starting a new cycle. We just finished the year 1. So they remotely, last week, went in and reviewed all of our policies remotely and said it was outstanding. So again, so then next year they'll do, year 2, year 3, and then year 4 they'll come back out and do an on-site assessment.
In your brief, you talked about the facilities and equipment. Are we, with respect to the health of the force, how are we looking with respect to the physical equipment and the facilities when you overlay the accreditation? Like, are we in jeopardy of not having a proper evidence room or?
There was, no, we're not in jeopardy per se, although there were in the last year when they came out, there were a few structural things that they
Highlighted.
They did
Yeah,
highlight,
flagged.
but it didn't preclude us from getting
The
the
accreditation.
accreditation. But they did note several issues, physical issues in the structure.
Yeah. Any of those worthy of us? I asked the question so that, hey, we can address this and kind of put it in our long-term planning to improve the force. Is there anything that comes to mind, like, hey, we probably need to look at X, Y, or Z?
Well, it depends on, we can certainly get the report and forward that to you guys so that you can see, exactly what they were talking about. It really depends on the assessor. It's interesting because it depends on the assessor. Because we've been accredited since 2011, and, I'm not sure if any others have brought some of the same issues up. Everybody looks at it with a different
Sure.
eye, right? So the ones that were here last year, I know, I think one of them had talked about, fencing around the generator, things like that. There was something in the cell block as far as an emergency button being on the ceiling as opposed to being on the wall, like different things like that
Sure.
that jumped out at them. But again, it did nothing that precluded us from getting the reaccreditation. So.
Okay. I'd be interested in looking at last year's report, actually, the physical on-site inspection.
As I recall, when we were meeting with Tecton,
Yeah.
some of the things that were like, well, this is okay, but we could upgrade by
Right.
moving the button from the ceiling to the floor or whatever, were mentioned in the facility assessment of where we're at. So I do think at some
It's
point,
been addressed or being addressed.
it was at least mentioned.
Yeah, okay. And then my other point was just only 22 agencies in Connecticut and 700 nationwide. It's really a feather in the cap of the Simsbury Police Department. It's a nice job.
It really is.
Chris, how long do you have to keep the results? Do you have everything back from 2011?
I believe they probably do. I don't know, yeah, 'cause I imagine at least 10 years. So I'd say, so at least since 2011.
Seems like a good thing to scan and put it in the memory of the computer instead of taking up precious space that we have here. Because I can only imagine 11 years worth of audits and paperwork to go
Yeah.
on. Right.
Jen's waiting for you to mention that after we hire our accreditation specialist, right?
Additionally, so there's also state accreditation, CLESP. So effective January 1st, 2019, Connecticut created the CLESP, Connecticut Law Enforcement Standards and Practices, and has mandated that all Connecticut police departments comply with 16 standards as a minimum. Topics including, but not limited to, pursuits, use of force, and complaints and alleged misconduct by police officers. As a result of our CLIA accreditation, we're also in compliance with that state mandate as well. So that's what we're So, any questions?
I asked my question. Being in the aerospace industry, we get audited by so many manufacturers who want us to follow their policies along with the national policies of aerospace. So I know how much space those results take up. And it just, if we can do something different, if it's 10 file cabinets to free up some desk space or just some open space, I think it's a worthwhile thought, discussion for you guys to have.
And so All of our policies and proofs, all those things that I kind of highlighted now, those are categories electronically in a system called Power DMS. So they are housed electronically. When I was in Manchester, we had file folders of every
You bet.
thing, whereas now it's all electronic. Yes, we have the inspections would be a physical hard copy. So when the memo from Lieutenant Chase to when he did the inspection, that would be a physical hard copy. But everything else is now computerized. So it really shrinks the amount of space that's needed. So and I'm not sure when the department went to Power DMS, because obviously I haven't been here 2 years, but it's been probably long since before I got here. So I imagine that most of it is electronic.
Can you send Commissioners Grant and Long a copy of this PowerPoint? Any more questions?
I do.
Hang on.
All right. Anyone else have anything else they would like to mention?
I do.
All right, in that case, I will move on to the last item on
The alibi here, you mentioned the study by Tektron.
Yes.
Can you give us an update on where we're at with that?
I reached out for a status update, so they interviewed members of the department, they interviewed stakeholders, and the next step is to have a formal meeting of everybody where they're waiting to get that scheduled. I sent an email, haven't gotten a response as to,
Yeah.
but it looks like it's on the town side, like some of our people need to set up the meeting with Tecton so that we can take the next
And
step.
is there a date that we have in mind that, hey, we
No,
wanna-
it's me saying, hey, what's going on?
Yeah.
Can we get on this?
Yeah.
And then I think you've gotten copied on, and I was like, hey guys, what's going on?
Yeah, okay.
So I will send out another
Reminder.
flare, like let's get this going. On the same thing of following up, we are also waiting to hear from the town / Board of Selectmen about the staff survey that was part of the budget. At our last meeting, I mentioned I reached out to First Selectman the first select person. And she was looking into it to see if we could start before July 1st, because that's when the fiscal year was. And I hadn't heard anything, so I know it's on our radar to get to it as soon as we can. And now that our fiscal year has started, I believe they'll be able to move forward
Okay.
with finding or putting out request to agencies for bids and so forth. But that's another thing that's just percolating that I'm waiting to hear back on.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you very much.
We adjourn this meeting at 5:41 PM.